Hi there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind on my mind, and we will have some real talk. So I have a Stimpy dog that is coming up to make a little cameo. Can you say hello to everyone? He's a little camera shy. He kind of wants it, but not exactly sure to do what when he finally gets it, you know? So I've got some notes. They're a little bit all over the place because how do you even approach a topic so big as the past, okay? And we're talking about getting a new perspective on it for the intents and purposes of having more fun with your life and being able to move ahead with greater ease. That is always the approach to the happiness clinic and having more of you. So where I generally like to start a lot of times. Hi Dawn, great to have you on. And thank you for sharing the picture of your blanket from last week. That was awesome. But when I start with a topic and when it's really big, I always think that one of the best things to do, but good place to start, is to get an idea of what we're even talking about. So a lot of times I will just Google a word and see what the definition actually is. And when you look up past, an adjective actually comes up first, and it's gone in time, no longer existing. And then as a noun, just basic earlier time period. But what I found interesting is in this definition, they also give some synonyms, over, gone, done, formerly. Now, to me, that's a pretty good indicative of where the past actually belongs. But you might be a little bit like me, and even though I know this cognitively, what I keep doing is bringing it up to now and using it to think about when somebody asks, what is it that you'd like for your life? Where are you going? What do you want to do? How do you want to show up is a big question I ask. That we look at, well, how have I done it before? So what do I think is actually possible right now? What could I possibly fathom with knowing that this is my past? Because that's factual, right? And that is where we get stuck, and where a new perspective about where the past fits into our life is actually needed, especially as we are going into the holiday season and you are going to be confronted with ghosts of Christmas past, except they're going to be living, breathing members of your family, okay? So this is a good time to have some new perspective on your past, all right? 'Cause families are complicated. But what I really want to drive home is it's something that was. It no longer is unless we bring it up. And so right off the bat, boom, I want you guys to get, this is how powerful I am. I can raise shit from the dead. And I can bring that stuff from 20 years ago into the present with the snap of a finger. So know that you are powerful beyond measure, beyond anything you've ever thought. So that's one new perspective on the past of me and how I operate and magically resurrect the past, okay? So acknowledge your power, then you get more of it, and then just like, even though I've never watched them, and don't get mad at me, but Harry Potter, where then you can master them. You cannot master your superpowers if you don't even acknowledge they exist. So even though sometimes we might learn about our superpowers in a way that isn't pleasant, like, oh yeah, I totally did that. I brought that past into now and it wasn't necessary. That now we can actually acknowledge what we did. Now we can play with it. Now we can practice and master, okay? But you have immense potential for time bending. And just what we've been trained and taught and modeled and seen is how to bring the past into the present. And we're going to talk about a new perspective and something that's going to work better, okay? Now, it can be useful because there is lots of learning and wisdom that can be gleaned from the past, so it's not all bad. But for a lot of us, because of what we've seen modeled, because we have built narratives and identities around incidents from the past, we hold on to the painful stuff. And a lot of us do that because it is dense and heavy, and so it feels more real. And we do it also with this glossed over reason that we should be doing this, as we're teaching ourselves a lesson, punishing ourselves to make sure that we have been justly brought to terms with our choices, and also to avoid and prevent reoccurrence. But the problem with what this is in doing that, what a lot of us have actually done is taken on the abuser role for ourselves in maybe a slightly different form. And we take on this reality's programming and then almost become like fembots. What's another, I guess just guys are just bots? I don't know. But we then just take on that programming and do it, and it feels normal and natural, and everybody else is doing it, so it makes sense, and we're all operating from there. And a lot of times we're also, we in some way just become the role model that we had. Not necessarily the one that was best for us that we selected carefully, but the one that was nearest. That's mom, dad, religious figures, teachers, aunts, uncles, grandparents. And we're going to talk about, because it is a lot of family stuff, but we will get to the point where, and I don't want to, it's coming in a later power hour, or it's been in a previous power hour, that there will be grace there to really understand that they did the best they could with what they had, the level of consciousness that they had. And not to make excuses for people, not to say that they cannot change, but it's just to give some grace and space to allow for change when we actually see it's what they had. But we just don't have to put all our time and energy into analyzing it, okay? Little digression, back on to the map, okay? So a new perspective on the past is in a lot of ways going to require a new perspective on you, creating a new identity of who you are. So currently, what a lot of us are doing is the past is a big deal. It's a big deal because, oh my goodness, it's a big deal because it's a big deal. I do this too, so I don't, there's no judgment here. Trust me. Oh my goodness. How could I possibly do this? I've never done this before. I am interesting. I did not say this as an infant. How could I possibly walk? I've never walked before. But now, when I look at certain things, how could I do that? I've never done that before. Interesting. So that might be something that's got to get out of there. But we use it then to determine, or use it as a reference point for where to start or what's possible. I see so many people do this, myself sometimes included, although I'm getting much better, but especially when it comes to finances. If somebody said, what would you like? Well, based on what I think I could probably get or accomplish in this amount of time, this is what I'll ask for. Instead of just being like, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to have. We do it because we're trying so hard to be intelligent according to the standards of this reality. According to what we've internalized is actually possible. So we use our past a lot to determine that. And our past a lot of times is inaccurate. I don't know if you guys know this. The stats on how much is accurate, inaccurate varies widely. But it isn't all true, all that stuff that we remember. It's just not. It can be colored by leading questions, by your current emotional state. It can be altered as it's getting stored. That's how trauma really changes how things are remembered and what things are associated with each other that may or may not actually be accurate. It can be distorted on recall. They can even be implanted. You can actually just be very convincing and say this or that thing happened, and your brain will actually start to create details, okay? And this, again, can be especially true in families. As we open up and we go on our healing journey and we open our eyes and see some things that were true that we didn't see when we were little kids, we can actually then start to embellish and add detail on how much worse it may have been than maybe it actually was. Totally guilty here, okay? But the bottom line here, as far as with the new perspective, is this what you want to base your future on? something that's possibly at least got some inaccuracies, and I know Selena's in here, and so I see her, and mathematically, is that really what you want to be basing your future on? She would say, hell no, the numbers, no, this just isn't going to fly. I know, she's a numbers person, I love that. Yeah, so it's just, okay, because what is it that I want for myself? Who do I want to show up as? And this is where the new perspective comes. You had to know it was coming. That I can't shut up about my future forward focus approach to coaching. Because what the problem is that most of us know more about what we don't want. We know more about our past than we do about our future and what we want. We have spent so much time, yes, maybe we know, yeah, my parents were doing the best they could with what they had, but let me analyze it further. Let me get all the details, because somehow in having this perfect narrative, I will be able to let go. And that's what we're basing our future on, is based on who I am and where I came from and what I've done before. That's going to determine what I can do from here. And that's the bullshit that we're going to blow up today and create a new perspective on the past. And we're going to do that by going to the future. It's the future forward focus approach. So it's getting to know, who would I like to be? How would I like to show up? How do I want to know myself as? Like when I say, I'm JOYLYN, what do I want to come to mind? No longer sad sack, no longer suicidal, no longer eating disorder laden driven. How do I want to know myself as easygoing. I want to know myself as potent. I want to know myself as resolved, like that calm eye of the storm, being like, shit just doesn't ruffle my feathers. That's how I want to know me. Now, is that who I've been in my past? Oh, hell no. Rageaholic, because that's what I knew, because that's what my dad was. And that was normal, and that seemed better to me than my mom who swept everything under the rug and pretended everything's fine. See, this is what happens when you have expanded awareness. Ooh, I got choices, but I picked an either or. I didn't actually tune in and say, well, what do I want to do? I just picked the one that I thought was slightly better, okay? Brilliant. It's just a starting point. But now, how do I want to show up? That's what I'm going to go for. That's what I'm going to start to prioritize. And so let me give you a couple of mind-blowing questions for blowing up this old solid past. What if your past? What if your family and all the horrible things that they may have done and said, because it actually, some of that might actually be very true. There may have been some really deep wounding. Some of it intentional, a lot of it probably unconscious and unintentional, but what if it wasn't a big deal? What if it just wasn't the thing that you thought about most of the time? What if it wasn't where all of your effort and attention was going? In your healing process, it might require a good amount, but what if overall it just was just something that you were just like, yeah, I'm totally going to heal that because it's just not going to be a big deal. So what if it wasn't a big deal? What would be possible then? What if, too, and here we're coming up with a new identity, what if you had the audacity to be someone who is not defined by your past? Because that is the current reality right now. That's how most people are operating, is looking back to see what's possible going forward. Looking back to see how many corrections I have to do, what prerequisites I gotta fulfill before I can allow myself to move forward. Nope. He's into this. Stimpy's into this. I don't know if you heard him. And what if your past, no matter how wretched or awesome it was, but what if your past could actually be fuel to like what if it was what you were using to ignite and get you through this quantum leap into this next version of you? And we do this with a future forward focus. Okay, so this is crafting your new identity based on what it is you'd like, not on what you think might be actually possible. It's just going for the gold, being audacious, being bold, and saying, this is how I want to know myself. This is how I want to see myself. And I'm going to put it in here you're actually, in doing this, going to change your past, because how we change the past, like literally, is not to understand it through great detailed narrative and analysis. It is by changing our interpretation of it and what it means to us. So this is how we're actually changing timelines in both directions in a new way that's actually way more empowering, okay? So when we're talking future forward focus, and this is the first thing we do in every single one of my programs because it's so freaking important and it's lacking in so many programs, to where everybody is going to the past. What have you struggled on before? Where are you likely to trip up before you even take your first step? Okay, sometimes, but I've noticed that I get bogged down and I feel heavy and I want to give up before we start because I'm ready for a new timeline. So right away, where are we going? What's the direction we're going in? And how we find this out? Questions. Questions is the fastest way to get information. What would you like more of in your life? Because we're no longer looking at fixing anything because the past is not our reference. So what is it that I'd like to have more of just because I can? Just because that sounds like fun. What would I like to have more of? What would I like to add? Maybe I've actually gotten a little bit of this. As you heal, you'll start to be like, ooh, I see more of that. I'd like even more of that. Hey, JOYLYN just said that thing at the beginning about how I'm actually using my creative powers to bring the past and resurrecting things, and I have the ability to bend time and change the way I operate with time. I'd like more of that, but in a way that works for me. Neat. Okay, I'd like to know my superpowers. You add that on there. How would I like to show up? When the rubber meets the road, when the shit hits the fan, how is it that I want to present? When I'm going through challenges and I'm handling this dark night of the soul, we talked about last week in the Winter of Our Discontent, how am I going to be the one who actually has this steadfast knowing that this isn't going to last forever, so I don't have to be a reactive lunatic and try to over-control things and manipulate and force circumstances and people to do things or say things so that I feel okay? How do I just know that for myself? How do I have this really overwhelming fountain of confidence to where I don't need that from other people? How would you like to know yourself as? I'm brilliant. I'm brilliant with money. I'm brilliant with business. I'm loving. I'm generous. I'm kind. Because I haven't met anybody who said, how would you like to know yourself as? I want to be the meanest. I mean, that's actually old days. And that might be something else as far as new perspective of the past. We can't judge the past by our current conscious level. Because we have actually expanded. We have transcended. And so if we look down on the past and judge it, we can't use it as fuel, because you can't judge and have gratitude at the same time. And it's through gratitude that these things become available as fuel for us, okay? Stick that nugget in there. That wasn't even in my notes, but that was gold, okay? So there's your number one. You're going to the future. What would I like more of? What would be fun to add? How do I want to see myself show up? How do I want to know myself? Okay, but then here's the action step. Because we're about action, pragmatics, you actually have to take the time to get this information, which might be sitting your ass down. For JOYLYN, don't get another handful of nuts, okay? Sit your butt in the chair and stay there. Maybe have a pen and a journal, and maybe you stare at the page for a minute, but you just start writing, but let this information come. You've got to create a space. And we talked, it was in the 6-week challenge, to relax, to receive. Just like a football player, they don't hold up their hands. This isn't how they bring it in. Create a relaxed atmosphere for you to receive this information from you, okay? Now, you may start with what it is you don't like, but the key here, because you just have to start where you are, and if that's what you know, start there, but don't stay there. You have to make sure you're going, the information I'm looking at is where would I like to go? What's the direction I'm moving in? How am I going to direct my energy and attention? Okay? So don't stop until you get that information. Let it keep coming through. And if you have trouble, that is something to notice ooh, I keep looping back and going back into the shitty past of how I can't forgive myself. I can't get over this embarrassment. It's never going to change, because then that's when you know you might need a coach, and there's probably some trauma work to do, because that's how we end up staying in loops. Okay? So it's going to give you some very good awareness no matter what. But take the time, give yourself the time, and now is the time that the universe is actually saying to do it. It's getting chillier outside, the nights are longer. What else you gotta do? You don't have to watch more TV. Give yourself a little bit of time, okay? Get this information. Then, if you've worked with me before, if you've seen some of the other power hours, you know that in a matter of milliseconds to weeks or months or years, the past, the old stuff, the stuck points from that, the way we've interpreted that was limiting, that has made it unavailable for fuel, that's incongruent with where we're going and who we're becoming, that's going to start to show up. Okay? But be curious about it. It's not about judging. It's not the reason why you haven't had it before or can't have it now. It's just to start seeing it's coming up to go and observing it without judgment. That is so much easier said than done. And it's a shame, because I could talk about this for an entire power hour, but I'm actually going to leave that in its little container so that I can stick to time today, okay? But the more that you can do that, to observe without judging, you actually expand your awareness to greater and greater degrees. And more as you do this, and as things come up and you're able to not get stuck in the judgment, you're going to start to see, and you already have some of this already, and I'm just going to plain tell you, life is cumulative. Okay, so your past was never a waste. There was nothing wrong with anything that you've done or chosen so far. A lot of it might have actually been a need to have an experience for you, maybe to even use now or in the next 2 years. Your soul knew that, and you just did it in the past. You just didn't have a frame of reference or a context for it. So learning that life is cumulative and getting out of judgment of your past. And so questions, again, are the fastest way to get this information. What did I learn from my past? Because it can be valuable information. What was I aware of then that I didn't acknowledge? Just like oh wow, I'm actually very creative and power and potent, and I have some time-bending abilities. I never acknowledged it, never thought of it that way. There are probably other bits, and especially if you're empaths, you picked up so much information so fast and so early that it's not until you get on this healing journey that you start to, oh my goodness, there was so much codependency in my house. Oh my goodness, my childhood was built around my mother or my father or my sick aunt. Oh my goodness, I was never actually allowed to be me. So to acknowledge the awareness that you have, but then to instead getting stuck on that and using that as it's not fair, this isn't right, but to continue on the healing and use that, what is beneficial or contributory to me now? How was this benefiting me? Because a lot of what we also aren't acknowledging is we had some mad survival skills, okay? We came into a broken system, but we navigated that shit with craft and stealth and a whole lot of other superpowers that made sure we are alive today to create the future that we want to have, that we really want to have. That's not determined by our surroundings, because now, guess who's in the adult body with the car keys? It's me, so I can steer my life wherever I want to go. Awesome. So what about my past? What about me? What about anything that I chose? What was a contribution to me that I can start to have gratitude for? And what might be beneficial for me to take forward? Because it wasn't a waste. It wasn't all bad. And what can I release now? What might it actually be fun to say fuck it to? And like, I think my mom had a cookbook, Fix It and Forget It. I like to say fuck it and forget it, okay? Because it's just fucking over. Remember, over, done, in the past, no longer existing, the definitions of past, it's over. So what might it actually be fun to drop like a hot potato? And you, as the audacious badass that you are, coming into this new reality and becoming this person, You can just be like, yeah, I just don't want to be bothered by that. I will say, and it's not bypassing because you're going to notice, because with your expanded awareness, you're going to notice how much you want to just pick it back up. So that it isn't just a, oh, it doesn't bother me, and la, 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 la. It's not immaturity. It's actually a conscious decision to set it down and no longer pick it back up. And in doing this work, you're going to see your tendency to want to pick it back up, and you might do that. It might actually be necessary. It might be not, there's so much going on in this process, okay? So let me look at my notes and see where we are. But when it comes to using your past as fuel for your quantum leap, your past cannot be your reference point. It can only be your fuel. So it's not your launch pad. It's not you proving anything. Because if you use it to prove, the past always has to come up and be referred to. If you use it to prove, you never actually just get the joy of creation that's possible. Because it was always in reference, in spite of, despite of something, that past is always there, so it's always in the present. So it can't be about proving. It's just got to be fueled by curiosity. I wonder if this wasn't a big deal to me, what could I create then? I wonder if I were more creative and artistic, what would my medium be? What would be more fun? And yeah, you may not hit it right out of the gate. You might try this. Nope, it's definitely not painting. It's not clay. It is glass. It is mixed media. It is metal. It is actually interior design. It is actually rearranging furniture. But being curious about it and not stopping until you get something that actually feels fun and light, okay? And it must be about you. It cannot be in reference to another person. I wish so-and-so could see me now. Because again, you're bringing that past forward and you're making them your reference point, and they're still part of the identity. It's just coming from this internal curiosity of, hey, soul of mine, heart's desire, like, what's the yearning here? What is that thing that you've always just kind of been like nagging in the background? I wonder about this. I wonder about that. It's got to just come from you. And a lot of this, we're going to see, you might start to redefine, even in your future forward focus, what success even means. Because a lot of us gathered that information from all the people that we were surrounded with, so that actually success and who we'd like to be and all that, it's all going to start changing. And then what wisdom, here's another question, what wisdom might my soul have been targeting that I can actually have now? Because this past wasn't a waste, now we're seeing more and more that everything about us is nonlinear. So that there might be something from when we were 5, there might have been something from our freshman year in college. I actually see that me starting intermittent fasting over a year and a half ago actually led me to some spiritual awakenings and the change in my relationship status and leaving a marriage. I would never have predicted that. And granted, if somebody would have told me that in advance, then I probably wouldn't have chosen that, because at that point, I thought that that was the wrong thing for me to do. It's definitely not where I wanted to go. But now seeing, oh my goodness, that played into it so well, that's really weird, because I never would have even put those two things together. But one thing I know is, as a relationship coach, everything's related, because here I'm in the middle. So there we go. Okay. Now, let's take off some judgment. Hindsight's 20/20, because you're no longer in the woods, okay? You've gotten past that point. You can actually see the whole picture. So give yourself some grace for not seeing everything in the moment. And it actually also might be that you weren't at the level of maturity or had the awareness to actually hold all of it until now, okay? So your timing's good. You're getting it. That's all that matters, is you're getting it now, okay? And then, how to use this creative power for your future instead of your past. Again, as you heal, it will become easier and easier to live and let live, and really know on a fundamentally sound, they were really doing the best that they could. They gave me what they had. It was broken and it was shitty, but that's what they had to give, so they gave it to me. I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to set it down. I'm going to create something else that works. That's where we are in this moment in time. And one of our best and greatest allies for this is Archangel Michael. Again, I'm just going to slide that under the door, because another one is me, okay? How's that for a sales pitch? Archangel Michael and myself, we're just on the same level, okay? Almost, but go with me here. Because I am talking the future forward focus. We're going to change your past by changing the way you interpret it and how you use it for you, okay? And we do this is the #1 thing that we do in all the programs, whether it's happiness brain training, a 6-week get unstuck and happy as fuck challenge, or the 90-day relationship remodel, and soon to be coming up this spring, the love yourselves, okay? Love yourselves. Oh, and starting in January, another one. Oh my goodness, plethora, smorgasbord, cornucopia. The Superhero Sandbox is going to be open for registration here in January as well. And it's all going to be based on who am I? How do I want to show up? Who am I becoming? What do I want to know myself as? We're going to start there, and everything we're going to do is how to deal with, handle, and put this past, these old habits in their place. To actually set them down and say, I no longer need you, you're not congruent, I can't carry you forward. Oh, I can use this piece as fuel, that's great, I'll go with this. Ooh, this actually will be helpful in the future, let me pin it there. We're gonna learn how to do those things. That includes emotional handling, because it's intense when we're stuck in the in-between and not knowing exactly how all the pieces are fitting together. It can be intense, lots of restlessness when the pieces are flowing together and a clear next step is not actually available. Coming up against embarrassment, shame, regret, guilt. Learning how to handle those emotions and actually get them out of our body so we're not carrying them forward, because they are heavy and they will slow us down. And then we're going to learn communication skills. How can I better voice what it is that I'd like, and how do I more clearly request, and how do I more clearly recruit and become an invitation to contribution so that I can have this even faster? Because other people can also be allies. A lot of us might have learned, I got to do this on my own because that's the system that we grew up in, but that's no longer the paradigm. Coming into the divine feminine is going to be more community action. Learning how to collaborate and communicate and cooperate so that we all move forward together. That's part of it too. So this lone wolf stuff is not the way that it's going to do. And of course you can, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be slow AF and a lot more painful, because there's a lot of insight and wisdom that you can draw on from other people so you don't have to make all the mistakes. Hi, Cliff's Notes, okay? And let me give them to you in my programs, all right? So, just want you to imagine right now giving yourself these gifts for Christmas. Clarity, self-assurance, confidence, calm, fun, support, and community. What if this is all your soul really wants for Christmas and you could give that to you, okay? And that you could actually know then how to develop and create this for yourself and be really confident in this, the process, the skills, and the tools that you need and how to use them all before spring. So you've got options, happiness brain training. I'm loading it up. We're starting again next week. Get in, $77. I don't know if it'll ever, it's freaking amazing. Ask anyone. Selena's in here. She's been in it, knows it's fun. And it's actually fun because the community's fun. So if you're looking for some support to get through the holidays, definitely jump into happiness brain training. You can't go wrong. Then you've got 6-week Get Unstuck Happy as Fuck Challenge launching 2nd week of January. We've got the Superhero Sandbox opening early January, and a 90-day relationship remodel is ready whenever you are, because it's individual, tailored to you, your timeline, but you don't have to go it alone because I'm there with you every step of the way, okay? And I'm just freaking awesome, so come on and work with me. Okay, that is your Power Hour, a new perspective on your past. It's not a big deal because you and your future are. It is and can be fuel for you, just depends on how you use it. Gratitude's the way to get there. Sometimes we just have to have a little bit of space in between us and our past, a little bit of trauma healing so that we can get to those gratitude points. Questions are the fastest way to get there. So ask what it was that you knew, that you were aware of, that you can use, and that can be a contribution to you now. And then just moving in the holidays, let me put it in there. Live and let live. Give some grace. You will never go wrong by just not diving in, not sinking the teeth in, not trying harder to understand or get someone else to understand. These are the gifts that are available for you. I would like you to have them solidly, quickly. That's where you can work with me. So if you're ready, get in touch and we will get you started and see which program is the best fit for you at this time. And I think that's it for today. Your future is the most exciting thing, and it's a thing that I can't wait for you to realize. Real-ize. Isn't that neat about words? Real-ize, we've been saying it the whole time, but let's make that future real. And we're gonna do that by shifting how we look at our past, how we use it. That's available for you. Watch this replay as many times as you need. Contact me, let's get started and get that going for you. And until then, have a great Wednesday, have a great week and weekend. I'm already looking forward to talking to you next week. I can't wait. Thank you for joining me. I love you so much. Mwah.